afternoon, and good evening to you, the glorious people of the tube. Hope today we're feeling grand elsewhere in your world. Hi there. Welcome to Q&A Friday this week. Q&A Wednesday will return to normal next week. Anyway, Q&A Friday. First question is from a guy called Josh. I've got a very low budget. What do I recommend to start? Meaning amps, pedals and picks. I already have a Strat knockoff guitar. What I recommend would kind of depend on what your budget is. Everything kind of depends on what your budget is. If your budget's like £100, then we can go from there. But what I would recommend amp-wise is something like this. This is the Marshall MG30. These are brilliant amplifiers. They've got inbuilt effects. You've got 2 channels, foot switchable. You've got a CD in, you've got emulated line out and headphone thing for quiet practice, which sounds okay. You know, you can just turn it down to the point where it's not a bother. What else? If you've got, you know, and these things go dirt cheap. You can get one of these really cheap. They're really worth it. There's also custom amplifiers. I think you can see it behind me. That thing there. I don't know if you can see it, but I hope you can. But the custom KGA10. It's a little 10 watt practice amplifier, and it's absolutely brilliant. Pedal wise, I would always recommend the Zoom Multi Effects. The G2 or the G2.1U are my favourite. I absolutely love them. I haven't tried any of the new ones because there's no guitar shop around here that has them, and I can't afford to buy them, unfortunately. But everything I've seen on them is really cool, and I've always been a big Zoom pedal fan. So I would always say a Zoom Multi Effects unit is really cool when you're first starting. It's endless hours of fun and messing around with different sounds. So amp wise, I would say something like a Marshall like this, or a custom, or if your budget's a little bigger, there's the orange CR35 RT or the CR20, or even the CR12. If you've got a bit of a bigger budget, the CR60 is awesome way to go. What else? Marshall MG heads, the 100 watt head and combo, 100 watt head and cab version of these to go fairly cheap, so they're cool as well. Other pedals, wah pedals are always fun. Vox wah pedals are normally the cheapest. The silver top ones, and they're amazing. They're my favourite wah pedal in the world. Fuzz wah pedals wise, you could go like Tone City. Tone City do amazing pedals. Marshall do amazing pedals on a budget. Boss pedals, certain Boss pedals like the DS2 and the DS1. What else? I think that's about it. So yeah, I mean that's what I'd recommend if you're on a budget, really, amp wise and pedal wise. Picks, it's all down to personal preference. You want to get loads of different thicknesses, from really super thin to really thick, and just see what you like the most. Like, you know, what makes you play better, so to say. I really like thin plectrums. I like 15-60mm plectrums. I can't stand anything thicker than that, really. So yeah, just get like as many plectrums as you can of varying different thicknesses and go from there. Okay, so moving on to question 2 now. Okay, so question 2 comes from Jordan. Says, how long would it take me to learn a song in the early days because I can't read tab? Well, I started off trying to read tab. It wasn't till quite a few years into playing guitar that I got fed up of struggling through tab, really. So, and I used to get people to kind of write down what fret certain chords were. So if I was learning like a Green Day song, say for instance like learning When I Come Around, I'd get them to say, you know, about what's G, and they would say, oh, it's just a 3rd fret power chord, and I'd figure out my own way of doing it. But the first song I ever figured out by ear fully was Purple Haze, because I remember I'd learned All on the Watchtower the night before, and it took me about 5-6 hours to learn All on the Watchtower, or all of All on the Watchtower from a tab book, and there was bits missing because I couldn't understand it, and I struggled through it, and it was just a really hard work. So I learned Purple Haze by ear, apart from the solo, which I learned later on as well. but I learnt all the chords and stuff by basically doing that thing I talked about in the last Q&A session of kind of like finding those notes on the low E string. And I just kind of figured it out, like just trying to find those notes, just figuring it out. It took me ages, and it took me a long time, but it was still quicker than learning it from tab. I would say it probably took me in region of about an hour to 2 hours to learn Purple Haze, because there's a lot of that song is just repeated. So once you've learned the verse and that bit, you know, you kind of got most of the song. So it took me about an hour, maybe about an hour and a half, I would maybe say, at a push, if I remember correctly, to learn Purple Haze. But it was just a case of throwing myself in the deep end and just trying to do it over and over again, and eventually just kind of got better at it and better at it and better at it. Still a long way off from being like really, really good at figuring things out from here, because you know you're always learning. But it used to take me quite a while. I would say anywhere between an hour and 2 hours, I would say it takes me to learn a song from ear, depending on how complex the song is. If the song's really simple, I could probably learn it in about 5-10 minutes from ear, if it's really simple. But if it's a bit more complex, then, you know, and there's guitar solos in it that I want to learn note for note, which is very rare, it'll take me a bit longer. So yeah, hope I answered your question. Question 3 now. Okay, so question 3 comes from Vincent. He asks, is it better owning cheap guitars or saving for more expensive guitars like custom shop Fenders or custom shop Gibsons or whatever? In my opinion, what it comes down to really is a good guitar is a good guitar regardless of what it is. You know, this is a Squier Bullet, and I absolutely adore it. You know, it's just awesome. It really is good. It's just better, and some people probably want to hang me for this, but this guitar is better and sounds better and plays better than some USA Fenders I've tried. You know, not just because it says USA on it or it's got an expensive price tag doesn't mean it's actually great. You know, I've been very lucky in my life to play a lot of custom shop Fenders and Gibsons and a lot of vintage kind of instruments. I've been very lucky, and what I learned from that is, like I said, is a good guitar is a good guitar regardless of what it is. It doesn't matter. You know, if the guitar plays well, sounds great, and speaks to you on that level, then it doesn't matter. You know, I don't like people who use expensive guitars as bragging rights. Like, oh, I've got a USA Strat, you've only got a Squier, you must be not very good. It's like, you know, that is, to me, is just bang out of order. It's like, it doesn't matter what you play if you are happy with it and you love it. You know, and it sounds good to you. As long as it sounds good to you and it makes a sound and you want it to make, and it plays the way you want it to play, that's all that matters. It is everything, that is. Regardless of what, you know, the idiot down the road with the USA custom shop limited edition Stratocaster has, you know, if your Squier Bullet is you know, is perfect for you, then it's perfect for you. You know, you don't need to be kind of going out there spending all this money on really expensive gear just because. I've met a lot of people, especially during my time in old hack guitars, who would spend thousands and thousands and thousands on gear and ask themselves constantly, why am I no good? And it's simply because gear doesn't make you, expensive gear does not make you a great player. You know, practice does. You know, playing makes you a better player. It doesn't matter if you've got Peter Green's Les Paul and Jimi Hendrix's Marshall. You're not going to sound great if you don't put the time and effort in. So at the end of the day, it is a case of no matter what you play, as long as it feels right, it's right. You know, so you know, and I like underdog stuff. I like the Squier Bullets. I like the Marshall MG stuff. I like the kind of the stuff that people have rated very low, because there's something in everything. There's something good in everything you play, regardless of what it is. You know, regardless of the price point as well. There's always something good about it, regardless of what it is. You know, even really crappy guitars have something cool about them. You know, whether it's the electrics that are certain, you know, the pickups sound a certain way, the electrics are kind of feel good, or the neck feels great, or whatnot. The neck on this guitar is absolutely fantastic. It really is. It's absolutely amazing. Plays ridiculously well. Like I say, you know, as much as people do probably want to hang me, it does play better than some USA Fenders. So anyway, it's kind of down to personal preference, but I would say it doesn't matter. A good guitar is a good guitar at the end of the day. So yeah, anyway, moving on to question 4 now. Question 4 comes from Dan. What gigs do I hold very close to my heart, and what memories or shenanigans do I remember? I've got quite a few gigs that I was really that I loved to, that I was happy to be at. Get your words out, David. Probably the most special gig that I was at was Chili Peppers in Hyde Park. That was the first time I'd seen John Frusciante live and the Chili Peppers live, and it was just one of the most amazing things in the world. There was James Brown on before the Chili Peppers, and he played for about an hour and a half, and it was amazing. Like, James Brown was so good. And I remember his lead guitarist at one point jumped off the stage while doing a guitar solo, landed on his feet in front of the crowd without missing a note, and did this amazing guitar solo on this black Strat in front of the crowd. And he had like, they all had red suits on, and I remember like he finished his guitar solo, and the camera was on him, and he just whipped his volume off and took the guitar up like that. And this guy came to the front of the stage and he just lobbed the guitar up at him, and the guy just caught it, and he jumped back on stage, put the guitar back on the side, just started playing his funk bits again, and it was just the most amazing thing. And then the Chili Peppers came on, and well, actually, I'll tell you something actually before that. When James Brown went off, I saw John's Marshall's been wheeled on, and I was like, John Frusciante's amps. I was going absolutely out of my brain. I could see like the Silver Jubilee and the Major and the other, the Les Paul stack, and I was going absolutely ballistic. And Dave Lee wheeled them out with help of another guy, and they wheeled them out, put them in situ, and they were already on. And then they wheeled out John's pedal board during. By the way, it was obviously quite big. They wheeled it out on 2 flight cases and had to put it together. And I remember, like, it was Dave Lee was there, and he had this guy with him helping him lift the pedal board down onto the stage and getting it into place for John, and they were setting up monitors. And I remember Dave Lee started to line check John's Strat. When he walked out with John's Sunburst Strat, my brain exploded. He just had John's Sunburst Strat on, and I was like, bloody hell. And I remember so clearly, I was quite a distance from the stage, and he was line checking the Major and the Silver Jubilee, and I could hear the amplifiers over the entire crowd, not coming through the PA, just line checking them, making sure they make noise. And I remember hearing them just off the stage volume, and I was like, that's loud. Like, I could hear it. I was in the thick of the crowd, and I just remember hearing it, and I was like, God, that is loud. And then he brought out his Les Paul, and I was like, since when did John Frusciante have a black Les Paul custom? Because, you know, I didn't, 2004, you know, didn't have YouTube and all that kind of stuff, so I was like, didn't know John Frusciante had a Gibson Les Paul at that point. It was mad. And he was line checking that, and I remember hearing that as well. And then I just remember they came out and started jamming, and I expected John to come out with really long hair, because I'd bought the Slane Castle DVD like a couple of weeks before, and I expected him to come out with long hair, and he came out in a beanie hat and a skinhead. And I was like, what the bloody hell? And in the first jam, he came over to the right side of the stage where I was, and I could see him, and he had his Telecaster, and I was just like in awe, absolutely in awe of the man. And another awesome part of the night was when they did Parallel Universe, and it was just getting dark. It was like a real kind of a dusk kind of time. I remember like there was a dragon, the Slane Castle dragon animation going on the big screens, and they were doing Parallel Universe, and it was just like the most otherworldly experience I've ever experienced. It was just insane, absolutely insane. And I remember John, like, it was annoying because he went to the other side of the stage to do the guitar solo, and I was like, no, come over this side. I was on the right side, I was on his side, and he went to the other side to do the solo. And then another song, I forget what song it was, he ran up on this kind of thing behind Chad, and he did a massive guitar solo behind Chad on this kind of like raised platform, and then his Telecaster, and he was literally had his guitar like that, and he was doing this solo, and he was just going ape on it, and it was just the most amazing thing. And we saw him play Mini Epic, which is an awesome song, and it took us ages to figure out what the hell that song was. It wasn't until years later in YouTube came along we saw him playing Mini Epic at Rock Palast and Rock AM Ring. And it was like, that's that song we saw him play. We saw him play Mini Epic. And John did like 4 solo songs that night. He did Maybe, he did a couple of others as well. He did Tiny Dancer, I remember him doing Tiny Dancer. And a couple of other things. He did a lot of solo stuff that night, I remember. And it was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. It really was. And then I saw him at Don Valley Stadium as well, and they did I Could Have Lied and all sorts of stuff. It was just absolutely mind-blowing. But yeah, absolutely blown away. But yeah, that's one of the things I could talk for hours on certain things that I witnessed that night and other nights and other gigs and whatnot, but I thought I'd just kind of narrow it down to that one. Anyway, let's move on to question 5 is from Jack. What amp would I recommend to practice in a room and occasionally gig? I would recommend the Orange CR60, the Marshall MG100 DFX 100 watt combo, single 112 combo, or a PV Bandit. One of those 3 would just work no matter what. Excuse me. Because they're just awesome amps to plug in and play, regardless of pedals or anything. But they are fun with pedals as well, and they're all just really cool amps. So yeah, there's the Orange CR60. The Marshall 100 DFX combo looks a lot like this because you got inbuilt effects with that as well and reverb, and the PV Bandit, preferably the red stripe, because that amp is just incredible, absolutely incredible. So yeah, there you go. They're the 3 amps I would recommend. Okay, so question 6, last question of Q&A Friday, is from Dave. Hey, great name. I have to agree. Okay, do I have any tips on learning scales? You also sent me a link to your video of you playing Jane's Addiction just because. Your guitar playing is great. It's relaxed, it flows, it has feel. Your playing rules. It works nicely, and you got very, very nice PRS. The sound was fat as well. You had a really cool sound. But learning scales is... What I would say to learn scales is the most important thing of learning scales is your 5 positions of your pentatonic scale. They are the most important things if you want to be, you know, a lead guitarist in blues, rock, reggae, you know, punk music, whatever. You know, the 5 positions of your pentatonic scale open the guitar for you. It's like a door opens up. But what I will say is, once you've learnt the scales, once you've learnt all where the notes are and the scales, don't run them like that, because you're not going to learn anything from that. That's just theoretical knowledge, and that's just like, it's good for finger exercises, but you want to learn to use these scales melodically and practically inside the sense of the song. So, like, nothing's better than practicing your scales practically than a 12-bar blues. And there's a million backing tracks on YouTube, and I'm going to start making my own backing tracks to put up on YouTube as well at some point soon. But if you've got, like, say, a backing track in E minor, which is always a good place to start. Every guitarist loves E minor. Yeah, you've got a backing track that does that. You know, and you've got your E minor pentatonic scale and your G major pentatonic scale down here that you can use. You can start kind of messing around with that. You know, you can kind of start to, instead of just kind of like over that going, instead of over that going, which is very unmusical. You know, you can start kind of like, you just start using it in a more of a practical sense instead of a theoretical sense. It's like, I always say it's like learning the alphabet. Just because you know how to say A, B, C, D, E, F, G, blah, 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 doesn't mean you can spell dog. You know, you need to kind of now understand how the alphabet fits together to create words. And it's the same thing with scales. Just because you know your scales doesn't necessarily mean you know how to use them. So it's a case of you need to kind of like figure it out in a practical sense instead of like a theoretical sense. Practical is where things click in place in your head instead of it kind of like just this scale, you know, which is just not fun. It's boring. It's unmusical, and it's not really going to give you a leg up playing music, really. You know, if you can, yeah, you get together with your friends and just bash out 12-bar blues and just take it in turns, going mad. You know, making mistakes and understanding where the mistakes are and correcting that. That's kind of like the best way to do it. Or I say just do a backing track. You know, anything really. And learning solos note for note is a good thing to, you know, to start with. Like just kind of like figuring out kind of certain solos and learning the notes that, like, you know, the notes and the runs that your heroes use, and just kind of copying them is a brilliant idea. I mean, I did that with Jimi Hendrix, John Frusciante, Billy Joe, Mike McCready, Paul Kossoff. I did it with all of them. I stole everything I could from all these people, and just kind of rehashed it into something else, really. And you know, it's really cool. So yeah, I mean, I would say just kind of like learn what you kind of want to learn theory-wise. You don't need to learn it all. There's no reason in learning the harmonic minor scale or the Phrygian dominant scale or whatever if you're never going to use it. Learn what you need to learn and forget the rest, because it's just going to get in the way. I stopped learning theory a while back because I'd learned all I wanted to learn, and I stopped learning it because simply it started to take me in a direction I didn't want to be in. It started to take me down the route of thinking about what I was playing, and I don't like that. I despise thinking while I'm playing. I like to just play, and it was taking the fun out of the guitar for me. So, you know, that's a bit of a kind of like, you know, just be careful. If you feel it's taking you in the wrong direction, then your feeling is right, stop doing it. And I say it's not important to know all the theory. It really isn't. Just, you know, I don't know much theory, but I don't care. I love playing guitar, and that's all that matters. You know, and I can play to the ability sometimes that I'm happy with. You know, I've got no interest in kind of learning whole tone, how to fit a whole tone scale in or whatever. You know, it's not interesting to me at all. So, you know, I've kind of got a bit off on a tangent there, but my tips are definitely is learn the scales and then use them practically, not theoretically. Get out there and improvise solos and wing it, mess up, make mistakes, you'll get better at it, and then it all starts to click into place. So yeah, there you go. Okay, so thank you very much. Hope this has answered all your questions, and yeah, I'll see you on Wednesday for another Q&A, and I'll see you on either Sunday or Monday, depending, for another video. So yeah, have a great morning, afternoon, and good evening. Goodbye now.